as a city to get to a point where young men in our community and in parts of our city see an officer and don't just see an officer with a uniform and a badge, but they see him as a partner in helping reach their full potential. And they see in that officer a mentor, a Little League coach, a leader in the church and in their community, which they are.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, of course, we're talking here, that's Rahm Emanuel, mayor of Chicago, the shooting in Chicago a year ago, and the charges leveled, murder charges against former police officer Jason Van Dyke in the killing of 17-year-old Laquan McDonald. Joining us on the panel, Brad Hirschfield, author of You Don't Have to Be Wrong for Me to Be Right, and president of CLAL, and Jim Hoft. He is a blogger. He is the founder of the GatewayPundit.com. Great website. All right, gentlemen, we'll show the video of it in a second, but here's a fundamental problem with what he's saying. No, kids, especially kids who walk around the street with a knife, not to say he deserved to be shot, don't need to look at cops as Little League coaches and mentors. They need to look at them as an example of authority, and they need to respect them. Brad?
So I think they're both right. Emanuel's right and you're right. But their primary job is law enforcement. And about that, you're right, Steve. And I think if he was suggesting that as Mayor Emanuel, that that is not their primary task, he's completely wrong. Here's the thing. Partnered policing always works best. What concerns me most about what he said is to get to that place, it's not just what the cops have to do to be seen that way, it's what the community needs to do to train its members to see police officers that way. Both sides have an obligation here.
Well, Jim, let me play, before we get to you, the other thing he said about how the cops need to view the kids here, or the troubled teens. Here it is.
But we also have to get to a place as a city where officers who patrol communities in our city see a young man not as a potential problem and a risk, but they also see in that young man as an individual who is worthy of their protection and their potential. They see a student, they see an athlete, and they see an artist.
All right, you know what, Jim, I'm sorry. When a guy's walking in the street with a knife and he's told to put it down and he doesn't put it down, you see a potential murderer criminal, not an artist. Sorry.
Right, absolutely. And we also found out that this young man was on PCP during the shooting. It doesn't excuse the officer, of course. I don't think there's anyone in the country right now that is supporting the officer for what he did. 16 shots on this kid. He's on the ground, and this officer is still unloading on him. It's an awful thing, but it looks like the system worked. Steve, they're going to prosecute this police officer. He's charged with murder. And so I think once again, we see these protesters out, but what actually are they protesting? The system is going to charge this man with murder. We don't know all the details, but it looks like the government is actually working as it's supposed to right now.
Right, and the protests were very tame in nature compared to, let's say, Ferguson, and you're right near the Ferguson, Jim. But Brad, nonviolent yesterday to a great extent, and also if they have anybody to blame, we have a video of one woman saying impeach Rahm Emanuel. Rahm Emanuel was the chief of staff of Barack Obama. All these cities where these complaints and these things and protests against police are run by Democrats.
Is there a question in there for me?
No, I mean,
here's what I will say. I think that Jim is right. The system is working, but the culture may be broken. I think it's very important that the protests here were peaceful. It is completely unacceptable when they become violent. It is legitimate for people to protest. What's not entirely legitimate was a lot of those protesters, and this I do find troubling, if I'm sympathetic to the need to speak out because the shooting was inexcusable, were singing not just things like "we shall overcome," but "let my people go," suggesting that African Americans are slaves in our own cities. It's just not right. It's an insult in a world where human slavery really exists.
Let's quickly play 80. Could we get 80 in there? If we can. We had to put beeps in it if we can, and then I want Jim to comment on it. They were also shouting curses at the police. If you have it, you could roll it.
All right, so there's a little language there and what's on, and some people are trying to block shot. And you can see a line of police officers and you got the demonstrators.
I mean, Jim, that's a little more reminiscent of Ferguson, but again, nonviolent and tame.
Right, exactly. And last night, by the way, was the one-year anniversary of the Michael Brown decision from the grand jury here in St. Louis County. So I have to commend the Chicago protesters. They didn't torch the town. They didn't burn any businesses. They slid a few police car tires. They wrestled with the cops over their bikes. They threw bottles at the cops. But compared to what we lived through here in Missouri, they actually were pretty tame, I would say.
Jim, Brad, thank you. Good conversation. Have a great Thanksgiving. Gimme 5 is next. Don't go away.